Welcome, everyone, to the Pommy and Kirra show. That's really hard to say. I'm used to saying something else, but I'm joined by Kirra because Faz, unfortunately, is gone to go and see Mr. Faz, Senior, who is recuperating in hospital. So good day to you, Chris, sending our love. And Kirra, how are you doing? Welcome to the show.
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I look a little bit different to your usual co-host, but I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for asking me to join.
Well, we needed an emergency. I couldn't think of anyone better. So I suppose we'll get on to the Blues news as people flood in. So let's take a look.
Cause we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution.
Well, Carlton news. We're not in final, so we haven't got anything exciting to talk about. But Blake Acres has nominated Carlton this evening. He's cleared out his locker. He looks set to come. You'd imagine for either that Liam Jones pick or Carlton's pick in its 20s. But exciting that Carlton might have a bit of business done very early as opposed to wait until the last minutes of the window. What do you think, chat? And what do you think, young Kirra?
I'm super excited about this one. I went to the Freo final on the weekend and I thought as much as Freo looked a little bit off the pace the entire game, I thought Acres stood his own and he was on one leg for some of the game too and he looked unreal. So super excited and, saves the heart getting it done early in the trade season, not leaving it to the last minute and then missing out. So hopefully we can get that done and he'll be in blue, which is super exciting.
And it looks like it's a real cheap contract as well. If you take the average of the reports, some are saying 300, some are saying 350. I suppose it'd be safe to guess 330. We'll round it out. To answer your question, Andrew, Faz isn't fired. He's visiting his old man. His old man's been a bit sick, so he's here, look, just to prove it. Faz is there. But yeah, 330, and you look at his numbers, very strong defensively, which I think Carlton lack. We did have a habit of playing Jack Noons as that defensive wing, and Carlton fans hated Noons. So hopefully they can give acres of love to Blake.
Well, I was actually shattered. I was one of the very few when we announced that we delisted Nunes. I know you have to move on at some point, but I thought he was a player that was, if anything, just really good for depth. I thought, we all know we lack in that defensive wing role. So that concerned me a little bit that we had got rid of him. But if Acres is walking through the door, then I can part ways with Nunes happily because Acres is an unreal get. And I think he'll be really helpful on that wing as well as that defensive role.
Yeah, and it's nice that Carlton are targeting, I think, someone they desperately need as well. And what excited me is usually Blake Acres would be 700k. So the last couple of years, every time we get a player, it's well over what you'd expect. I was actually shocked when I saw the price that it was going to be around that 300, 350k mark. Usually I'm used to us paying like Zach Williams, probably double his worth just to get him across. So quite an exciting acquisition, probably maybe a statement of where we are now, that people aren't thinking about their financial packet. They're thinking about opportunity.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing that excites me is obviously Kirra is enjoying his time in blue because they would have had a bit to do with each other at Freo. So I don't think if Kirra wasn't liking his time here, Acres would just be walking across the country to us. So that also excites me because clearly we've got something good building and players want to come to us.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, because you can't keep attracting people. And I agree with Quenton here that he's a massive upgrade on Nunes. We've got to be fair. Absolutely. I love Nunes as well, Kirra. I was a fan. I think he's the best looking player in a Carlton shirt. He's the only player that orders a medium when he's probably a large, and I can confirm out of Carlton as well. He seems to wear mediums on a night out as well. He obviously knows he's got a good body, but a good acquisition for Carlton. And the other acquisition, a guy that probably really divides Carlton fans, because depending on who you speak to, this guy is either all Australian or a big waste of time. David Cunningham re-signed, and it was good to see that he does still exist, albeit they used a ham instead of David Cunningham, which does worry me if David Cunningham is still alive.
Yeah, look, I've been a bit worried about Cunners. I don't know where he is. I don't know. We haven't had an update since like round 2. So I was thinking that he wasn't even in the country anymore. So the fact that he's signed is interesting. I would like to see a photo or a video of him to make sure he is alive and breathing and well. But, I mean, good to see we've signed him. Hopefully he can play some footy next season. Hopefully we can see him.
Yeah, it does worry me because he seems to be one of them guys, doesn't he, that Carlton every year have a guy on the injury list that it says 2 weeks. But it's like a silent 2 weeks. It's like you kind of forget that 2 weeks ago it said 2 weeks, and you keep saying to your mates, 2 weeks' time, Cunners is back. And then you realise you've said that since round 1. So It is weird, but what do you think? I know a lot of people have complained because obviously Liam Stocker's gone, and a lot of people have gone that. I understand for me he's a total different position, so I don't think you can count Stocker, but do you think that if he gets fit, I really get excited by Cunners because of the way Carlton play. I think Cunners would love this game style.
Oh, so do I. I get super, super excited with Cunners. I think we've seen enough of him in the past to know that he's got a super talent, and I think he would fit really well into our best 22 at the moment. But the worry is we just haven't seen him. And as you said, he was that last line of the injury list the entire year, 2 weeks, and it was an entire season where we haven't seen him. So excitement is there, but it's really blind hope at this moment because we don't really know what's going on with him or, what the situation is.
Spot on. And LyndenH, great English film here, Snatch, 2 minutes Turkish. He is exactly like them sausages being cooked on that barbecue in that movie. Yeah, just waiting for it. But there was other good news for Carlton. Carlton, 88,776 people ended up signing up for Carlton, putting them, I believe, inside the top 5 now, firmly one of the most supported clubs. And I was actually surprised how quickly that's gone up, to be honest, because you would say Collingwood hit 6 figures. When we get into the finals next year, that's going to be 100K, isn't it? Easy.
Oh, absolutely. If we were in finals, that would be through the roof. Like Richmond, everyone thought Richmond was big in Melbourne when they hit their stride. We will be bigger than Richmond if we make finals. Like our membership will go through the roof. Fans will be everywhere. They already are. So it's a super exciting thought to have, I think, in the master plan. Did they say 120,000 is the aim, which is massive? That's a lot of members. So hopefully finals, and then the members will just keep skyrocketing.
I think it's very exciting. I have noticed as well, I've got to give a shout out to Carlton fans because I live in Werribee. So since the Doggies have been knocked out, every time I go to Carlz, I don't see any Doggies fans anymore. But like 2 weeks ago, everyone was a Doggies fan. I have noticed that Carlton fans are still out with their caps, with their hats, being proud. So that's what really excites me because us and Collingwood, for me, are 2 clubs that do stick thick and thin. So I think you're looking at probably the 2 biggest teams next year should they both make finals.
Absolutely. I saw a little boy walking his dog today in the Carlton Indigenous Guernsey, number 9 on his back. That made me happy when I was driving home from uni. When I went to both the finals on the weekend, and I saw at least 5 people at each game repping the Carlton. So we're definitely loud and proud no matter how we're going on the field. And even if we've been kicked out, we still want people to know we support the Baggers.
Spot on, and I agree with LyndenH as well. That's a proper figure as well. It's not, you can buy one for a teddy bear or something. It's a proper figure. I do love as well Carlton fans. I don't know if anyone else has this experience, but there's that like little nod you give another Carlton fan. You don't know them, but you can see that they've got the pain in their eyes and they're acknowledging your pain, that you're buying your fruit and veg in enemy territory and you're feeling it. But it's congratulations to everyone and exciting times.
Very exciting times, especially with the community that a lot of people have built online. It's super exciting. I think we're building something very, very special.
I couldn't agree more. And I know we slate Kane Liddell a lot, but a lot has got to be given credit to Kane Liddell, maybe for that buy one, get one free last year, which a lot of people said, it's going to backfire. It's flawed, because it looks like a lot of people have stayed on board. but then also more people have come. So super exciting. If you've got a membership, congratulations to you. Like, honestly, because great. That brought a smile to my face, to be honest.
Yeah, it did me too.
And let's wipe the smiles off our face because we finished with the Carlton girls. The Carlton girls have picked up the mantle from the boys, and they're doing their best to break the hearts and minds of the Carlton fraternity. Disappointing 27-0 draw to back up the 1-point win they had, and then the drubbing we had against Collingwood. Is it time to panic, do you think, Kirra? You're the AFLW expert.
I don't want to say panic because last week when we beat Essendon, I was saying maybe there's still hope for finals. Maybe this year isn't as bad as we all think. But if we lose on the weekend, I think there's massive, massive red flags. I think if you're only beating Essendon by 1 point and drawing on the weekend, they're two expansion clubs that we're just getting over the line or not even getting over the line. So that is a huge concern. When you then look at the teams we're going to play in the rest of the season who are really, really talented teams like Melbourne, we'll get our pants pulled down if we perform the way we've performed the last 3 weeks. So I don't think it's panic station yet, but there are red flags starting to, be put up.
I agree with you. And I think what's weird is you look at the girls' game, it's a new game, and you've got to accept that it's a little bit behind the men because the men have had 100 years of history. But it's weird as well that I find that Carlton's recruitment is almost going back to like the mid-noughties of it seems to not suit what the players are trying to play like. So it's like we're getting real fast territory players in a kick-mark game style, and then we're converting them our way. Because I was watching Maddie at Essendon, and I always thought Maddie was just a contested bull. And I thought she hadn't really got much upside apart from that. But she looks a different player for Essendon. The fact she's allowed to run into space, get herself clear. She's starting to showcase her inside 50 prowess. It seems like she's got a different wind. And then I look at Taylor Harris at Melbourne, totally different player. She's got so much freedom. Seems like these girls are really restricted by what style we're playing.
Absolutely. And I think not only just the style we're playing, I think also the fitness. I feel like when the girls are leaving the Carlton system, they're getting so much fitter. And I don't know who that comes down to. I don't know where the responsibility lies. I don't know if it's that the players just got too comfortable in the Carlton system and when they left, that pushed them to get fitter. But that's a real concern of mine too. And also Shannon and I mentioned on the AFLW show on the Libbojrjr channel earlier that our VFLW girls just aren't at the standard that the other VFLW teams are at. And I know Essendon didn't have an AFLW team to compete with that competition, but I don't know off the top of my head, but I'd say they probably had about 5 girls in their VFLW team of the year for the whole competition. And they've all gone straight into the Essendon AFLW team and performed really, really well. Whereas I just don't think we have that development coming through the ranks at Carlton, which is also a big concern because if we want to improve, it's got to come from our own building. It's got to come from inside the 4 walls. And I just don't think we've got that at the moment.
Spot on. I think the one man we know, those who follow me know that I can't stand Daniel Harford. It's not a surprise. I'm sacking another coach. I am that guy. I don't know how he is there. Like, I don't know what he knows that I don't. But for me, I look at Hawthorn. They went out and got Beck Goddard, who built the Adelaide side. I just think Carlton missed a huge opportunity. And I do feel like Carlton are using the girls as kind of a way to keep the men in the profession. I don't think anyone else would employ Daniel Harford. Not a very glittering coaching record, not a glittering professional record. And I don't know how he survived last year. And if he survives this year, I think LyndenH might be onto something.
Yeah, look, I don't know either. I think there's a lot more responsibility that needs to be shared upon the whole system. I think our list managers, I put some responsibility on whoever's running our fitness. I think it goes across the board. It's not all solely on Half's shoulders, but I think we're going backwards and not forwards. And that's that's the number one sign that things aren't going well. Like, we should be on the up and we're not. So, when do we draw that line? And I think we've been saying this whole year that we want to achieve greatness, and the master plan says we want AFLW premierships. And it doesn't look like we're winning a premiership anytime soon with how we're playing. So something needs to change, or else that master plan is not going to be achieved.
Spot on. It's hard to think a couple of years ago, it looked like the girls were going to get there before the men. And now it looks like the men are miles ahead. But I agree with this, though. One good news, the draftees have looked pretty good, particularly the young girl, Keeley. We covered her at the start of the year in the draft. That is kind of exciting, though. We've got a lot of young talent there, haven't we?
Yeah, definitely. Skepper, unreal. Absolutely loving what she's bringing to the table. I think she's been a great addition to the team. And then Mim, we all know how much we all love Mim. She's just the best. But yeah, I think our young talent is developing quite well, which is exciting. We just need them all to gel together, because they've all been, every game this season we've had multiple players hit personal bests. So we are improving individually. It's just as a team, we're not where we need to be.
No, I agree. So, get around the girls, get there. If you can't get to the game, get to the TV, cheer them hard, because they need us. But hopefully they can turn it round. And we've got a final series to talk about, unfortunately. So let's get stuck into that.
Living life every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days. Fuck me, I'm looking in the mirror, so foggy, but I've never seen clearer. I don't really.
Well, it's trade time, and unfortunately for Carlton, no Carlton, no trade time, because there's nothing really exciting going on. But the big one, Luke Jackson, has finally been the least kept secret probably in the world. He's finally said he wants to go home to Fremantle. Ben Long surprisingly wants to go to Gold Coast. I never thought them words would leave my mouth, someone wanting to go there. Tanner Braun going to Geelong. Ollie Henry wants to go to Geelong. And Rory Lobb just wants out, but Fremantle don't want him. A lot of players, including Taranto and Hopper, they're all coming out. And I wanted to talk about, what do people think of some of these fees quoted? Because this flat fee for Luke Jackson, Melbourne want is 2 firsts, which I don't quite understand how they've got to that value. And I did hear Robbo the other night say he thinks a first and a second is fair. I agree. I don't think, I think some of these prices quoted are mental, like Hopper 2 firsts. Like, Hopper is just Matt Kennedy, but slower.
I think sometimes the media just put a ridiculous price point on it so that everyone freaks out and their comment section is great. Like, honestly, where do they even get some of these? Like how? How do they come to some of these decisions? I don't know. But I don't think he's worth 2 firsts. I think he has enormous talent and he will be a big miss for Melbourne. But 2 firsts, I think, would be overs.
It's weird. Like, I think he's a very talented player, Luke Jackson. But if I was Fremantle, I'd be looking and going, well, he's second fiddle to Max Gawn. I'm pretty sure I could have played second ruck with Max Gawn. He's that good. And I would have looked quite tasty. I just think it's a lot of money. And then there's the weird ones like Ollie Henry. He's just broken into the pie side and he now wants to go to probably the best forward line in AFL at Geelong's. Just some bizarre trade requests. Ben Long, why would you want to leave St Kilda to go to Gold Coast? I don't know. Fair play to him, but weird prices.
Very weird prices. And I think Geelong, this is just another example of Geelong being an absolute fortress. They just get all the Geelong Falcon boys back. They let them go, get drafted by whoever, and they know in 2-3 years' time they'll want to come home, and they offer them less money but say, hey, you'll be with your mum and dad and your family and near the beach. Life will be great. And they come home and they build a super team. So I think this is just another example of Geelong Falcons, Geelong getting their players back. But yeah, some weird price points.
Yeah, and Tanner Braun wants to go to Geelong, which I just thought if I was him, he's ready-made for Hawthorn. Like, I thought he would have been the most logical place to go was Hawthorn for a player of that caliber. And he's also chosen Geelong. Geelong, the place where everyone wants to go, and I've been to Geelong a few times. It's a complete shithole.
I suppose young player, when you're looking at Geelong, they're in the premiership window. Hawthorn are a little further off. That's probably what they're looking at, I suppose.
But yeah, nothing really exciting in trade time because Carlton out there, we're not after the big guns. Just the B graders are moving around. Obviously, the other bit of talk, which I think gets really exciting, James Hird back to Essendon. I know Gav will get excited about this. He's shored up as favourites. What does chat think about that?
I think that's absurd. Like, how? Well, I don't understand. I remember, was it the Carlton Essendon game that he came out behind the smoke and everything?
Yeah.
And I remember just sitting at that game thinking, wow, okay, interesting. And now he's going for the coaching role. Like, how does that even occur? I don't know. Are they running out of options? I was freaking out when Carlton assistants were being thrown around, but that's a strange situation.
It's bizarre, I think, for Essendon because I didn't feel sorry for them, but I have a few Essendon mates and they were all getting excited because Leon Cameron was linked with them. And like literally in the morning, he'd signed with Sydney Academy. And I was like, that's a very Carlton thing that the players, that the coaches you want suddenly become unavailable. But I was like, that's quite damning that he signed with an academy. He hasn't even gone into AFL.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be funny because it's a little bit like Carlton getting Malthouse back, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Malthouse at Carlton, that kills me every time.
It is though, isn't it? James Hird going back there, he's like Carlton sacking Voss and saying, "Oh, we'll bring Malthouse back."
Surely the Essendon, I don't know. I feel like Essendon fans are very torn on it. My best friend is Essendon, but I feel like from what I'm seeing on Twitter, half of them are like, "This is great." And then the other half are like, what on earth are we doing? So it'll be very interesting to see what it does to the supporter base's opinion.
I think it's weird. And I think Essendon suffer a little bit like Carlton. They've got such a rich, steep history that I think Gab's nailed it here. They get too sentimental. So Sheedy's pulling the strings around there. That festering old coot won't leave. And you know what's going to happen. James Hird's going to come in. I guarantee Joe Watson will somehow worm his way into that position. And that, I think, is a worry for Essendon because I think they're stuck in that old mentality of these legends will bail us out. And I think, even though, like Amy says, no one else wants the job, I think you look at their coaching staff, they've got some really good young coaches that were sought after for other AFL senior positions. And I just find it bizarre. They've got Jinku Sorella, who was linked with the Carlton job, and he evidently interviewed really well, but they say he's a tactical genius. If I'm Essendon, I think they need to bring him in and say, look, go young, gut the list, and let's see what you're about.
I think the problem there is they dug themselves a hole when they said we need experience. We need someone who's, they did that whole spiel, and that's the reason why they got rid of Rutten. And I think that dug them a hole because now they're in a bit of a situation where no experienced coach wants to go there because they're imploding in flames. And, they've got themselves to protect, like Lyon said no. So now they've got a situation where experienced coaches are saying no, and they've already said that they don't really want a young coach. So where they go now is all a bit of a mess.
Well, I'm with you. I think you've made I think they spoke way too soon, and I feel like there was a bit of Essendon arrogance that they were going to get a big name when they said that, and then big names, like Amy said, they backed out of that job really quickly, which I think is a worry. If I was an Essendon fan, I've got a brain, so I'm not. But if I was, I would be very worried that even Ross wanted the Carlton job.
Yeah.
Like, he did. Like, Ross literally ran away from this job as quick as it was linked. So I'm not saying I'm unhappy. It's quite amusing to me because Essendon fans have been in my DMs quite a bit. So fuck them. I'm glad they're miserable. Well done. And then we go on to something really exciting for Carlton fans. The Brownlow Medal. It is on Sunday. been postponed, obviously, because Her Majesty is no longer with us. But Kirra, little smoky chance, starting to firm as well in the bookies. He's now third favourite. You expect Neil or Oliver to win it, but gives us something to get excited about, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's giving me 2019 vibes, although 2019 I fully thought he might win it. Whereas this year I don't think so. I think he'll look really, really good in the first half of the year. I think he'll probably be leading by about maybe as much as 8 votes at the bye week. And then I think he'll crash a little bit. I think he'll be flying and then just taper off at the end of the year. So I don't personally think he can win it, but it would be super exciting if it was tight in the end few rounds.
Yeah, I've got Kirra tied 4th on mine. I have got the legend that is, I've got Lockie Neal winning it with Clayton Oliver 2nd. And I think Brayshaw and Miller will sneak in the 3rd, which will push Kirra out. But I did do my video today on Kirra. There is a lot of areas where Kirra is scheduled to poll 2 or 1. But halfbacks and key forwards have been given the votes by the AFL, which genuinely, believe it or not, Kerno might get stiffed on a few of them. He might get stiffed because genuinely in the last couple of years, key forwards kicking 5 goals, the umpires evidently haven't noticed that.
I can't see anything. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's where Kirra will fall short. I think Kerno will probably steal a few of his votes, but I've got him coming 3rd. I actually have Brayshaw coming 1st, then Oliver, and then Kirra. But I think I'll be getting very excited because he'll be flying like 3-3-3. I think when Pito was playing, he was getting more of the 3-vote game. I think when Pito taps it down, he plays more that Brownlow explosive style, whereas when TDK's in the ruck, he goes a little bit more unnoticed. So I think that's where he'll fall short.
No, I agree with you. I think it was that middle part, wasn't it? That middle to back half when Carlton had all them injuries and he didn't get the luxury of going forward. And
Had to go in the
kind of
ruck.
he just kind of sacrificed his game. But you would have said halfway through, it was almost like, do you remember Mark Murphy when he took out the MVP, but then he had that injury at the back half of the year? But he was flying. It was almost like that year where you thought at halfway, he's won this.
Oh, yeah.
Then it happened.
Halfway mark of the year, I was like, there's no way Kirra's not winning the Brownlow. He's winning it by the length of Flemington straight at this rate. But then, you know, things happen, football happens, Carlton happens. So it's not going to be that simple.
It's going to be an interesting one. Interesting one from here. Who's more likely to win in the Brownlow, Walsh or Dacos?
Oof.
That's tough.
I think I'm going to say Nick Dacos at this current stage. I think it will be Walsh, but the way they're playing currently, Nick Dacos is playing more of the style that will be noticed. I think.
Yeah, I think Nick Dacos as well. He's got 2 years where half of their stars retire and suddenly he'll take over, where Walsh has got quite a lot of people to contend with. Anthony Kirra, he's traditionally polled well for Fremantle. Then you've got Cripps, obviously, is a nightmare. Doc, he genuinely polls well off halfback. It's going to be, I feel sorry for Walsh because
me too.
Because Walsh and Cripps, when they play well, they can just take votes off each other.
I think that's obviously we're here to win premierships, not Brownlows. So we should be very happy with our team. But that is the thing with our midfield at the moment because they're so good. They're just stealing each other's votes. Whereas 2019, Kirra was really the only one that could get 3 votes, which is how he came so close to winning it when we had won so little games because he was the only one that was going to poll 3 votes. Whereas now we have a lot more competition in the midfield. So good in team ways, but in Brownlow ways, not so good.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then we've got the finals. We've got the Cats versus the Lions, the Swans versus the Pies. Probably the 4 best teams to pit against each other, style-wise. I think it's an exciting last penultimate round of the finals. Who are we tipping in the audience? And I believe, Kirra, you're gracing the Swans with your good luck.
Yes, I'm going to Sydney. So my dad's Collingwood. So we're going to drive up tomorrow, spend the weekend in Sydney. Hopefully my dad wants a Collingwood win. I am not going to make a comment in case he's watching. No, I think the Carlton in me wants Sydney to win, obviously want Collingwood to win for my dad's happiness, but I do think Collingwood's going to win, and I'm a little bit concerned about it.
It's a tough one, isn't it? I've got a sneaky feeling that Geelong win. I think Geelong are too good to win. And I think Geelong will be hoping the Swans win.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think Danger will be on the TV and going, please, Swans. Tough one to call, Swans Pies, because I would say that they are literally the team to beat at the moment. I think the way they play. I did have Swans to win it, and people thought I was mental. I'm going to back the Swans in. I'm going to back March Pommy. I'm going to back March Pommy against my better judgment, but I wouldn't be shocked to see the Pies win that. And yeah, and then I just won't watch the final.
Won't watch the granny because you can't handle it.
I'll just have my phone close by because I know once it buzzes at full time, if it's sweep loot, yeah, they've won. So I can move on with my life. But then we come to the wonderful bit, the debut this. So ignore the text, but this is Kirra's Ponder.
I'm taking shots at the enemy. I'm gonna make it to the top, leave a legacy. If I got something to say, you better let me speak. Turn it up a new degree, bitch, you ain't seen anything.
So the lovely Kirra, what have you got for us this week?
I think Fly's comments during the week saying that Collingwood's last loss to Sydney was on the coaches and that it was the coaches' fault that they didn't train for the ground and that he holds the responsibility for that. I think that is the masterstroke of the year. I think now Collingwood go into this game thinking, oh, well, it wasn't us that lost the game. The coaches didn't prepare us well enough. We are good enough to beat Sydney. And then I think they come out and beat Sydney because now it's taken that, not responsibility as such, but it's taken the pressure off Collingwood of, oh my gosh, we just lost to Sydney not long ago to, you know what, no, we're good enough. We just didn't prepare well enough. And it's actually Fly's responsibility that we lost. We didn't play as well as we wanted to, but now we're better prepared. We're training on a smaller ground and now we're ready to come out and beat Sydney. Sorry. So I think that Collingwood coaching, whether they believe it or not, like Fly, for all we know, Fly could be thinking, oh, I did great that week. They were terrible. But because he's put it in their minds that it was the coach's fault, I think that it takes, I don't know. That's mine.
No, I think that's very good. I've actually been, I hate to say it, and we've got Faz in the comments. He cops it because everyone in chat knows that Faz is a Carlton fan, but he is the biggest closeted Collingwood fan. He's my mate, but I tell you, I swear he's got a Pies scarf or something hidden somewhere. But no, I agree. It's he's been very. I think some of the things he's said are very good. Working in development, he's very clever in how he manipulates how he says things, which I think will actually motivate them. Like the other day when he said, "I didn't like them being on the ground because we're not losers," and I really did enjoy that comment. There was a lot of people I saw criticize it, but I was like, I like that because there's a lot to be said psychologically about doing the right thing, about living the way you want to be and presenting it that way. Wearing a sharp suit, do you know what I mean? Have the expensive suit, get in the mindset of what you want to be. And I thought that was quite good. I thought if I was a player, I'd be quite empowered by Fly saying to me, I don't want you on the ground crying. I want you stood up like a champion. And I liked it and I agree with you. I thought he just took a bit of pressure off them. And I think that's absolutely a big thing. You need to take the pressure off them a little bit.
Especially when it's such a young side. I know they've still got a lot of, senior talent that played in the 2018 grand final, but this is a side that no one had any expectations for this year. A lot of people said they'll finish bottom of the ladder. So the fact that they're playing in a prelim to a side that was their one loss after a however long winning streak, for him to just take that pressure off them and say, you know what, boys, it was probably on me. I probably didn't coach as well as I could have that week. That just, gives them a breath of fresh air to go into this week going, you know what, we'll be fine. We've got this.
Yeah, and chat, you all slated Faz for him saying that they'd go out, they wouldn't go out in straight sets. So on behalf of Faz, I've done that for you, Faz. There you are, mate. I'll cop the wrath of the fan base. But no, Faz, I'm sure you're there having a beer with Chris and he's trying to knock it over your head because I know that he couldn't stand your thing. But no, I agree with you, Kirra. I think I'll give him this. He's a very good motivator of them players. And you can see 17th, most people had them. I looked through the pre-season things because I was having a chuckle to myself because the journalists in Australia are amazing that they deny they ever said Collingwood was shit. And all of a sudden now they were like, oh, I always thought. And I'm like, went back and I saw like Lloydie had them 17th. And I think McClure had them 18th. And like now these guys are like, oh, I always thought they could do it. I always thought they might have it in them. And I'm like, mate, come on.
You didn't.
No, you didn't. I did. I've got my review of my predictions. I had them 17th. So I was well wrong.
Yeah, I thought my prediction was 17th too at the start of the year, which is wrong.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. But no, I think that's a great thing. And let's see what I've got.
Yeah. Please tell me that I can't, that I won't, that I fail, that I'll never make it out, yeah. Please tell me all the bad, never good, fill my head full of every single doubt, yeah. Please say any negative thoughts, I pop off when I hear people say I cannot. I get off to the thought of proving everyone wrong, I won't stop to the top.
Well, every week I like to take a pot shot at journalists, and this week is no exception because this one annoys me every trade period. It annoys me to the extent that it turns me off trade period, and that is speculation from the media that teams don't have any salary cap left. And then it transcends to the fans. And I think it's the most nonsensical thing when you understand how the salary cap is formulated. There is a commission at the AFL. It's done a year in advance. There is no way known. It is almost impossible for a club to sign a player and be like, oh, shit.
We've run out of money.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? They budget and they know for it. So for me, the whole insinuation that about the Richmond team as well, saying, oh, how can they do it? It simply says they're either changing people, getting rid of some players to fit it in, renegotiating contracts like Hawthorn did. But all the history of salary cap cheating in the AFL hasn't been overplaying players. It's been the extra payments, which were under the table or hidden through the contract. So the base salary, it is impossible. Like I'm telling you now, it is almost impossible to go over, and a club wouldn't even risk it.
Yeah, I love that one from you, Pom, because this time of the year it always happens. Like it was us at one stage. Everyone was freaking out that we were going over the salary cap, and then we're like, hold up, we've actually just budgeted really well and done some very good strategical planning, which a successful club should be doing. So I agree. And I think journalists just like to, put fear into people's minds because if I hear that Carlton might be going over the salary cap, then I freak out and I tell my friends and we're talking about that journalist and giving them more clicks and more likes. So I think they just love it. And I love that from you.
It's just one of the most bizarre things because it's honestly, I'm telling everyone in the audience, it's almost impossible. Like if you went over the salary cap, you are an idiot and probably should be hung at dawn if you're a list manager because it is so clear. It is so clear. And I love the TDK. I was listening the other day about TDK re-signing and they were saying, oh, do Carlton have the salary cap? And then I was reading the same articles the same journalist wrote last year about Carlton having the extension on the salary cap because they hadn't used so much for so many years. So they banked that salary. And then I was reading their delistings and what they released the contract value. And I was like, Carlton are actually running at a net zero. So what they've actually re-signed last year, they've actually got rid of this year. So really, Carlton are probably in the same position as last year when everyone was saying, oh, Carlton could bring in another A-grader. Carlton can afford to bring Kirra and another player in. So it just blows my mind that a journalist can write an article 1 year and then the year happens and they're like, oh no, that's it. They're over the salary cap. Close the shop.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's and it is Gav, you know what I'm talking about. Kane Corns, man, like stick to running, buddy. Stick to running, mate. Because honestly, leave thinking to Uncle Pom. You just run, mate. You just run. And from that controversial opinion, we're going to get onto your fan questions soon. We've got controversial opinions. I'm looking forward to seeing what Kirra brings, because this is usually the time that Faz nearly gets me banned. So let's see what we've got. What have we got, Kirra?
Now, before I say mine, I do want to say that this year is a little bit different and there's a few more variables because GMHBA is being half knocked down and they're doing construction. So I understand that. But if Geelong are playing an interstate side or a team that have less members, less supporters, they should be allowed to play at GMHBA if they want to. I mean, Sydney Collingwood is being played in a stadium that holds 58,000 people. So if Geelong earn the right to have a home game and they're versing a side that is interstate, then they should be allowed to have the choice to play at GMHBA. That's mine.
I couldn't agree more. I'd never stick up for Geelong, but I think they've won the minor premiership so much that I think that in itself, like, in my opinion, and this is just me being a round ball pom, I think being top of the ladder after 22 rounds is incredible. It is incredible. That in itself is something that should be worshipped. So I think they should get a benefit from that, really get a huge benefit from that. And everyone knows it's hard to play at the GMHBA, that it is such a weird, it's not even a football ground. It's like a netball ground outside. So they need that advantage. There should be a benefit.
Like, I personally don't want it to happen. I'd much rather watch a final at the MCG over GMHBA, ABCD, EFG Stadium. But in saying that, I think if you can play a game which is a sellout at the SCG, then surely when they've won the right and they're playing a side that won't fill it out, then they can play at their home ground. If they want to, they should have the choice. They might turn around and say, no, I want to play at the MCG. I highly doubt it, but they should have the choice.
No, I'm with you. I think if I was a Cat fan, I'd feel a little bit ripped because all the other teams do talk about how complex the GMHBA is and how they struggle there. There should be some kind of benefit, especially when you're the number one team in the comp after all them rounds, that you do have a little bit of an advantage, because when they play them games at the G, it's really a home game for everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if we were so, straight on it being played at the G, then you'd assume Sydney Collingwood would be at the MCG. That would be a sellout. They'd have 90,000 there. So, I don't know.
No, I'm with you. I mean, if this was Carlton playing now, I would thank the lucky stars if Carlton were in a semi versus Geelong at the G.
Oh, me too.
Over GMHBA. I'd be like, yes, brilliant. That's advantage Carlton.
Yeah, I agree.
No, I agree with you. I think, and the fans, that they're agreeing with you as well, Lockie. I agree. It's a horrible ground, but I think you've got to have if you've got this home and away advantage, you have to maximise the advantage for the home side. And like you say, I agree. LyndenH, you've worded it in a beautiful way. Lou, he thinks we should be at the G. I agree about crowds, but I think the AFL have got to put crowds to one side sometimes for doing what's right, and otherwise make GMHBA not be their ground and let them play at the G all year in the regular season.
Yeah, absolutely. And if it's a Carlton-Geelong final or a Collingwood-Geelong final or a Richmond-Geelong final, then I can understand the AFL stepping in and saying no, because GMHBA just can't hold the capacity that this game needs to do justice. But when they're playing Brisbane, I mean, there was 62,000 at last week's final at the G. Like, that's no good for anyone. We fill it out more. Carlton fill it out more in a home and away game than that. So, yeah.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think it's brilliant. And like Gav says, they make more money from TV. Spot on. Do you know what I mean? And let's be honest, who the fuck wants to go to Geelong? You know what I mean? Like, I'll watch it on the TV. So, no, I agree. And why don't Sydney play their home games at a Carlz Stadium? There's about 12 people there, isn't there, Ben? I suppose only 12 people go and watch Sydney as well, Mickey Mouse team. But no, I agree with you. I think the home stadiums, I'd love to. I don't know what you think, Kirra, as well. I'd love them to bring back the old grounds for one round. You know when we used to do that community round and we go like to places you've never heard of? I'd love one game a year at them. I know Icon, probably Princes Park, they may say, oh, it wouldn't do. But I would think an away game for Gold Coast, it doesn't get a huge crowd anyway. They don't have big travelling fans. I think you could cram that into Princes Park.
I would love that. And I think probably if you weren't planning on going to Carlton Gold Coast, doesn't sound like the most entertaining game. I mean, we're getting better now, so that helps. But a member that might not have gone to the G or Marvel for that game will go, you know what, I'll go to Icon Park, bring back a little bit of history, have a fun day out. I love it.
No, I agree with you. And I've got one that's probably going to upset people, but this, I don't care. But here it is. I'll get it out. I think the Brownlow Medal is the single most ridiculous voting method in any sport for anything that prestigious. And before you all come at me, why the hell are the umpires voting that? What a ridiculous concept. The fact that if you make one mistake, like Kirra made that mistake and he got let off. Berry this week, he got let off. But the fact that you could miss out being voted the best and fairest player, who gives a fuck about fairest? It's about being the best player, firstly. But the umpires can't even make decisions that are obvious right, let alone trusting them to a judge who's the best player in the competition. And they blatantly have favourites. I would love to see the Brownlow be changed up a little bit. I think the MVP, I think the coach's award as well is a lot more accurate on who the best player is. Go back to when Cripps won it. I don't think anyone in the world would argue Cripps was probably the best pound-for-pound footballer. I just think I think it's archaic, and I think it might have worked in 1970, but in 2022, I think we need a better voting system and one that is more fair on who is the best player in our competition.
No, I agree. I think saying you won the Brownlow sounds awesome, but when you hear from the players, they all say that the MVP means a lot more than a Brownlow because that's voted from their peers, like the ones that they're competing against each week who want to win against them, want to beat them, but they're giving them that respect. Whereas the umpires, on the other hand, you know, it's just the umpires. So I think saying you won the Brownlow sounds cool, but I don't know if within the playing group, it's the most prestigious award you could win. I think the MVP and the coaches awards mean a little bit more these days.
No, I agree. Yeah. And there's so many awards. Like a couple of days ago, Paul, to answer your question. Now, I found this out from a player at the club, a guy that actually does this. The AA, right, isn't what you think it is. The clubs nominate players to be adjudged into that 44. So I could refuse a player. So just think about things like contracts. Some of these players have contract terms of, if I get nominated for the All-Australian, you pay me 50K. So I could just say, oh, fuck Cripps off this year. We owe him 50K if he's in it. So the 44 is actually probably more like a list of 100 that the teams themselves have put forward. So the AA, again, completely Mickey Mouse.
I did not know that.
I didn't know that either.
I'm gobsmacked. So, like Carlton say, we want to nominate Doc, Walsh, Cripper, Charlie.
Yeah, so it was explained to me that they have up to 10 players they can nominate per club. So they could say, look, this guy, we thought he was good. And then that goes to that committee who whittle it down to 44.
So you can say that you reckon half your team are in the
up to, yeah,
whole league's best. Wow.
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
Yeah, so for a laugh, like Cam Paulson's been mentioned in chat. You could have just put Cam Paulson if you wanted. You could have been like, you could take the piss if you wanted to, if you were Carlton, and go, we'll put Domaku, Alex Murkoff, Jack Nunes. Like you could just totally mock it if you wanted to. So I agree. I think I would love to see the AA be like the NBA's team of the year, where they vote one team and then the fans get to vote another team. and we compare them side by side.
Yeah, no, I think that sounds great. That'd be really interesting to see the difference between what the fans think and what they think, because fans see the game completely different. Like, you know, we are not viewing the game the same as those that are choosing the AA or the clubs that are nominating their players. So I think we should definitely go down that path, or at least consider what that may look like going forward, giving the fans a little bit more voice. I think even awards like Goal of the Year and Mark of the Year, I don't agree with how they're decided either. I think that's a little bit of a, I think last year when it was, I can't remember who, but it was 2 Carlton players against an opposition player for the final voting. And obviously the Carlton players are not going to win because all the Carlton fans are divided between who they vote, half vote for one player, half vote for the other, and everyone else votes for the opposition player. So I don't think that's the most accurate way of deciding Goal and Mark of the Year either. So maybe we just need to overhaul of the whole award system.
No, I agree. I just think I think it's bizarre because I also think the whole 4-hour ceremony of Gil counting back from 3 is the most ridiculous thing. Like the other day, I was saying to my mate, if you watch the NFL draft, I think the NFL draft, they have it lit for entertainment, that they piss off to analysts who are talking what you actually care about while they do all their fancy dancy stuff, and they only ever go back when there's any update.
Yeah.
Where we're actually literally watching Gil sup wine and spend 25 minutes telling us about how good the year's been. And I'm like, what? Like, I can't think of a bigger waste. If I was like Geelong, I would be pissed off Sunday night if we're playing in a final next week that I've got to let my players go to that just so Gil can feel important.
Yeah, I don't think the players enjoy it. From all reports, they think it's the most boring night ever. They've just got to sit there. I just love it for the red carpet. The red carpet's great. Seeing what everyone's wearing is amazing. And then the last few rounds is exciting if it's close. But other than that, I don't think the players enjoy it. I think they think it's a pretty boring night. And unless it's close, it's pretty boring on TV too.
I've got to say, I've been to Carlton's BNF as well. And aside from meeting the fans, it is probably one of the more boringest nights you'll ever go to. That's no disrespect to the BNF, but not really my thing.
I love it. But I only love it because I want to get dressed up and see everyone, and it's an exciting night. End of the season, it'd be a lot more exciting if we had played finals or just won a granny, but no.
I think you've proper insulted her there.
You have
far
not
better looking than
insulted me.
Does she have a Pom accent though? Am I growing on her? Is she starting? Could probably get away with it.
I get told that I'm Aussie as Aussie, so that's quite funny. That
I think you're Australian. You can be an honorary Pom though. We'll bestow it on you. But we get to the greatest part now. We get to hear from you guys and girls. So throw in your questions. We've got 10, 15 minutes of whatever you guys want to talk about.
Don't wanna sleep in, cause I got something to prove. I gotta take what I hate and finally make a move. I think of you and all the shit you don't do. Well, I'ma make hella shit.
So the first question comes in from Amy as the haunted picture falls down. Do you think we get Griffin Logue? Do you think we'll get Griffin Logue?
I don't think so. I don't have any reasoning as to why. I just don't think so.
I mean, he's best mates with half of Carlton's list, isn't he? So if we still had Varney, I'd say lock him in because he's probably been around to Zach Fisher's house for a beer, which would put him in the club. I don't think we will. I think as soon as we signed Sam Durden, I feel like our key forwards, that's us done for the year for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't think we really need him. So probably not.
Good. He's got good hair though. I'd have him for his hair. Very good hair. He's got Charlie Curnow hair. And Tim, Charlie Curnow was more damaging as a key forward when Mackay was injured. Interesting fact. me and Paolo have an argument about who's better, and I keep telling him that Charlie is another level to Harry. And my proof is, if you actually look at the time he played without Harry, he actually scored and took more marks than Harry did in the time that Harry didn't have Charlie last year. So I can see that. I did think, though, that I actually preferred them together.
I prefer them together too. I think the two-headed monster is a lot harder to stop when they're playing together. I think it's just a little bit about them not playing a whole lot of footy together, and they're still learning which contest to go to, which contest to hold back. I saw later in the year that they were getting in each other's way a few times, but that just comes with playing more footy together. You know, they haven't been used to being in each other's pockets, especially Harry. He's been a one-man show and had to carry the forward line. So now that Charlie's back, it's just about learning each other's craft, learning when to go for the footy, when not to, when to hold back, which I think Charlie got a few cheap goals from holding back and then being right in the goal square, which was, you know, magic from Charlie. But I think it's just, it'll come with them playing more footy together.
No, I agree with you. And I think that's another one as well, LyndenH. Spot on. We'll have JSOS as well. He'll be getting a little bit excited about playing as a forward again, as opposed to being a ruck.
JSOS, it really, really worries me because I love Jack and I would put him first on the magnet board. If I was the coach, he would be the first one in my team. But I am starting to look at the team and I'm getting really, really worried that Voss was playing him in a position filler last season. He would fill in for the positions that we were lacking. If something was going wrong, he got thrown there. So if we are fit, which is very unlikely because we're Carlton, but if we do get to a stage where we've got our best 22 on the park, I'm getting a little bit worried that JSOS might not be there, which makes me feel sick, makes me want to cry because I love him and I want him to be there. But I'm just getting a little bit worried that unless he finds another avenue to his game, he might get pushed out.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think, like Gav says, he hasn't quite peaked yet. And as Amy says, I don't think he knows what to do. I've got a feeling that with Cunners re-signing, you'd say high half forward. That's probably where Cunners wants to play. Jack Martin just can't stay fit. Brodie Kent, I thought at the start of the year when he was playing high half forward was good and finished the year really strong. And if I was Jack Martin, I'd be a little bit scared about Brodie Kent because I think he's 10 times as smart as Jack Martin is. And I think JSOS will be thinking, Jesus, there's probably only room for one at high half forward in an ideal world. Because it's got to be remembered, Carlton did have the 11th best forwards when you take away their keys. And they were the youngest and least experienced. So that will give Voss a little bit of excitement, thinking that they're AFL average. So I agree with you. I think it's going to be interesting when they're all fit. I don't think they all fit. Yeah,
me neither. And it's a good problem to have, but it also hurts as a fan when you love the player so much. And I think we know Voss has been very clear that you're not breaking into the 22. You're breaking into one line, one position. So Jack's not breaking into the whole 22 squad. He's trying to hold his position in a very specific spot, wherever that may be.
That's spot on. I think it's going to be very exciting. And like Ali says, it's very exciting we're having this conversation, I think. And we've got probably two of the most talked about ones. When will they extend Harry's contract? Thoughts on Harry Mackay's contract drama? Okay, right. We'll reword this question to get someone upset. Harry Mackay, will he sign? Yes or no? And if he chooses not to, who are you putting? What value are you putting on Harry?
I'm not putting a value on Harry because Harry's not going anywhere. I don't know. Everyone's going insane on social media. Maybe I'm just trying to block it out and ignore it and say absolutely not because I don't even want to think about that because I would be broken. But I just can't see in a world where Harry walks out. I just don't see it. Think back to when all the times we've actually been pretty bad, very bad as a club, and we've had no massive player just walk out. So why, when we're starting to be good and we're really on the rise and he's an important player in our side, why would he decide to walk out now? It just makes no sense at all in my brain.
No, I'm with you. I don't think he'll leave. I think he's stayed through the worst. And I think the only way I can think he'd leave and I agree with Lockyer, if he doesn't want to stay on the salary, I think he piss off would be my answer to him. But I just think the only way I could see him not wanting to stay is if he's a little bit upset because Charlie's taken the limelight, which I think Charlie has naturally. I think Charlie naturally stands out. I don't think people were as excited with Harry last year as they were with Charlie, and might be my fault because I made a song. So sorry, Harry, but I think he'll stay. I've just got a feeling that they've done the hard yards together. They have to stay together.
I agree. And I think what you touched on was a really good point, because I have been thinking about that the last few weeks. Is maybe he's a little bit upset that we've given Charlie this ginormous contract and that Charlie's come back from being injured, and Harry's thinking, hang on a minute, I did all the hard work in the years we weren't doing too well when Charlie was busy getting injured playing basketball and falling downstairs, and now he gets rewarded and I'm sitting in the wings and all the fans are loving him while I'm still kicking goals. Like, I have thought about that. But then you listen to all these interviews and he always mentions how he wants Charlie to kick the goals. And if he has the opportunity to pass it to Charlie, he'll pass it to him. And the way Charlie can get the crowd up and about, really makes the forward line an exciting place to be. So I don't think it's a jealousy thing. I think he loves playing with Charlie. And, I think at the end of the day, you're here to win premierships, not be the star standout player. So if Charlie's making you a better team, then that's only a positive thing.
Well, I mean, we glossed over the value. I wouldn't swap him for De Goey. No, I wouldn't swap him for De Goey. If Sydney, I'll give you the hypothetical because Fazzy's convinced he's going to Sydney. So if he goes to Sydney, it is all Fazzy's fault. Hypothetical, 16 and 17. And Tom Papley, they ring up today, Sydney, and go, we'll give you Tom Papley and 16 and 17. I can guarantee you can get some replacement at 16 for the future. And I reckon then you just have to sneak in a toll. Would anyone do it?
I would consider it. I think I've got that love for Harry now where I'm like, I don't want to see him go, but I would consider it because I love Papley and I really think that's what we're missing at the moment. I think Motlop and Durden, always all great, have high respect for them, but I think I watch someone like Shai Bolton and I think that's what Papley, and I think that's what we're missing. That really exciting small forward who can move up the ground, who just creates something, and I want it to be Jack Martin, and it should be Jack Martin, but he's just not there and he's not reliable enough. So Papley would be one I would consider.
Honestly, if Sydney rang us up with that deal, I would pack H's bags for him. Papley with that forward line and Kirra.
But Harry, he won the Coleman last year.
I'm Team Charlie though. Remember that.
Yes.
I will say, if we're having this conversation about Charlie, I'd be like, no. We've got some good ones here. This one's a good one from Paul because Young being developed as a backup rock. He did start to take over the backline duties when Marchbank and Gov were in there. He started to be a ruckman. Do you think that that's the way forward for Carlton? Because that was a big struggle, wasn't it, when Pitternet went down? TDK came in, did a very serviceable job, but Carlton really did struggle to work out what to do to give him a little bit of a break, didn't they?
Yeah, I don't hate it, but I also don't love it. I think if desperate times, chuck him in there. He did all right, but I also don't want to bang him up and bruise him and destroy him because we're putting him in the ruck. So, I don't think it would be my first option, but it's also not a horrible one. So if we have to, then we have to.
Yeah, and that was what Dogs did try and convert him. I don't think he minds pinch hitting though, Faz. I don't think he minds pinch hitting. I mean, he is playing for the best team in the country, mate. So, I mean, you got to do that. And we'll finish with a very good question here. Let's all go Cam Luke on you. Would you rather spend 10 minutes on the moon? I'm presuming I can breathe on the moon. Or a 6-month holiday, all expenses paid in Europe.
6 months. Interesting. 6 months, all expenses paid for in Europe. Absolutely. Are you paying? Can I go tomorrow?
You know what? Because I'm European, I hate to say it, I'm technically European, even though we're out of Europe now. I'd probably take the moon. I've seen most of Europe. Do you know what I mean? And I just want to prove I have got a mate. I'm not going to name him because he works with me and I think he might get sacked if I revealed who it is. But he does actually believe the earth is flat. And I would just love to go to the moon to take a picture of it and tell him he is a complete idiot. And I was right because I can't physically prove the earth is round because he wants to see it, even though I keep sciencing him. So I would take the 10 minutes. Or I'd take the night out with Charlie. I reckon that'd be quite good, but I'd have to run it by my wife to get a whole pass for that night. But that is all we've got time for. Thank you very much and give Kirra a big Pommy and Oz welcome. She's welcome anytime. We loved having her as the Faz replacement.
Thank you for having me, Pommy. Thank you, everyone in chat, for having me. I've loved being a part of the show. Hopefully Faz is back next week and his dad is okay.
Yeah, and if he's not, you could be the Lewis Young. Do you know what I mean? To his Liam Jones. I mean, you've made the job almost your own. Do check Kirra out. Blue Abroad Wednesday, 7:00 every week. She does the AFLW show. It's fantastic on the Blue Abroad channel with the wonderful Shannon Gore. So Kira's kicking ass there. She's brilliant. So, but we are sending our love to Big Chris and Big Faz, and we'll see you next week.
Bye all.